50 nifty United States from 13 original colonies. This is the Focus Group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is the URL for our website. You'll learn all about us there, including our Tuesday podcast, TFGM button. We want to thank our partner here on the Focus Group, Deep Discount. Get there by going to FocusGroupRadio.com and clicking on the Deep Discount logo and start your shopping experience. And a quick reminder, September is Criterion Collection Month, which means we're going to be giving away movies in the month of September. If you successfully can identify an audio clue from one of my favorite movies. So it's the deck's not exactly stacked against you, but, you know, it's one of my favorite movies, so that could be problematic.
I always like when people have trouble finding movies. We've only had it. We had it a couple times where you stumped the people. But.
Yeah, you're right. But most get it, which blows my mind. I mean, like, you could the most obscure audio clip people get, but sometimes they don't. And Bob actually picked the hardest one. It was from a movie called The Big Clock.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could do it like they do the old Name That Tune. You just picked one word.
Oh, Tim. Yeah, that's a throwdown. For all listening, that's a definite throwdown. And maybe I pick a clue like that from a movie that's so iconic that maybe the one word could do it, right?
Right. Edie!
There, Grey Gardens, right?
Yeah.
There you go, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you could do maybe one word thing. That might be a fun one to do, depending upon, you know. I know Bob consults on a lot of this.
It's funny. I have my list of movies picked for where I'm drawing the clues from, but I haven't. I started with a few, but this Ripple adds a dimension that I think I'm going to have to puzzle over. And I don't know if we should let Bob. Well, he'll hear this because the minute he gets involved, I remember once I was doing clues. Oh no, he makes it harder. So I was doing clues back in the serious days. I was at my computer and I was grabbing audio. And he listens to the clue. He goes, "That is way too easy." And I'm like, "Well, you want people to win." No. And he said, "It's 12 seconds.
No.
And he's like, "It's 5 seconds too long." And he had me cut this thing down. You know, we played it on that particular show, and people did get it. But, you know, it's... All right, I have a couple things, couple housekeeping things to you. I made the Aldi brownies. And we talked about this the other day. I used a glass pan, slightly smaller than 13 by 9, probably 8. I forget the exact dimension. So they were a little thicker than what you create. But if it was 13 by 9, they would have been thinner and I think chewier. I think that's how that works with the baking. But I think I paid $1.42 or $1.39 or something for the mix. Does that sound about right? Maybe it was
Yeah, mine was $1. Well, down here it was $1.33, so it's probably somewhere in that range. Yeah.
And we ranked it, the chocolate taste and the consistency, as a buy. I would put it right up with my other favorite, which was Pillsbury, the Pillsbury brand. So I really like that. And then Tim brought to my attention something that I had totally missed, and that's baseball player Billy Bean passed away last week. Was he 62, I think? Does that sound about right?
I thought it was just 60, but young.
Yes.
Either or. From some form of blood cancer, I believe, right?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the New York Times. It was a form of leukemia, right? So he was 60, you're right. And it was called acute myeloid leukemia. So I guess that is a blood disease, right? A blood cancer.
Yeah.
But he was most notable for, after he left, he played for the Detroit Tigers, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the San Diego Padres, and he retired in 1999. And then he came out after that, and he was one of the first Major League Baseball players to do that. And I think that effort, or that, coming out, actually had an impact on the sport.
Well, athlete overall, right? Professional athlete overall. Women seem to have come out more frequently, at least, or more so than men. There's still, quite frankly, not a lot shockingly, there's not an awful lot of professional athletes, males, that have come out, and they're out there, right?
And haven't we heard from sports players who say, the ones who are out, say there's way more than us. No one's just talking about it.
Yeah. Well, you don't think, it still goes back to the old Hollywood thing about image, right? And even something as innocuous as you don't want to admit you're married, because if you're married, then you're not, the desires of the...
For the teen girls. Yeah.
There's a chance. So, back to the brownies. You're right.
Everybody knows it's a cooking show disguised as
no, but if you do, I was shocked. Richard bought this pan, the 13 by 9. I thought far too big, but it said it was a brownie pan. Mm-hmm. But you can barely spread it, the full mixture. So I thought for sure it was going to be a problem. But you're right. You're exactly right. They came out a little chewier, and they're thin, but they were chewy. Versus I then did them again in a smaller, like 8 by 8 pan. Cakey. Where they were thicker and they weren't the same. But I did see something I was going to try to ask you about, so I'm glad you brought this up. There was something going on the TikTok where people were saying that you can buy a cake mix, any cake mix, and just dump in. Don't worry about eggs. Don't worry about oil. Just mix a can of 7-Up or something with it and bake it, and you'll have a cake. Very good. Gluten-free.
And could you do this with brownie, or just the cake mix?
I have no idea. I was wondering if you ever heard of such a thing.
I haven't. All right, so I'm puzzling about something. The eggs have to.
So they say no egg. They said no egg, no nothing, no oil, no egg, because a lot of these mixes have an egg and an oil and maybe a little bit of water.
Tim, don't you think this is a little bit like the time we fell down the rabbit hole with Skinny Girl brownies, and I started making these things, and you made them with pumpkin or something? And I bring a batch in one day, and they look like normal brownies, but Tim takes a bite and goes, these aren't brownies.
You were on your no sugar, you were on that kick. You were getting Mr. Health kick.
And was that after the brown rice kick where you kept gaining weight?
Because you're eating all these carbs. But I just said, if you're going to have a brownie, enjoy the brownie. Just don't have it every day. But don't pretend that that's a good brownie. It's not. And you knew it wasn't. But you were pretending it was. These are delicious. These are really good. No, they're not, John. I know you wanted it to be, but they weren't.
And that's right up at the time I brought in these brown rice crispy treats made with brown rice syrup and carob chips or something. And everybody starts basically breaking their teeth on them. And the faces in the studio, Katie at the board, call screener, and Tim's like, and no one's saying anything until Tim's like, these are just, and
horrible.
By the end of the show, they're like, don't bring him in again. Everybody on that page, don't bring him in again.
Well, that's like people who buy these pizzas now. I don't know if you've seen them. The cauliflower crust. It's not good. Don't tell me it's good. It's not pizza. Don't eat the cauliflower crust.
Do you ever make pizza at home?
I am going to start to, because unfortunately pizzas down here now cost $30 a pie, which I think is outrageous.
No way. No, really?
Yeah. By the time if you get something on them, they're $20-something. A hamburger down here is now $22. Welcome to Resort Town.
Wow.
So it's outrageous. But because of that, we've bought a couple of these flatbreads out of Aldi, which are actually quite good. I don't like really hard crusts, and that's what ends up happening with these frozen things, I think. But people do make, our friend Marianne, she says she makes pizzas at home. I've never really had any good pizza anyone's made at home.
Oh, I agree. And it comes down to the dough and the crust, right?
Yeah. Now, my little nephew, he makes good pizza at home, which is shocking to me. And so I decided I was going to try. So I bought the dough from the restaurant or from the grocery store or whatever. I ended up having to call him. I did everything wrong. It ended up being just a rolled up calzone with some sauce on it. I couldn't even get the stupid thing. He goes, Uncle Tim, you have to let it, you have to let it get to room temperature. I don't have time for that. I want to make it now. It's out of the...
I want pizza. A rolled up calzone.
Oh, it was a mess. We went right in the garbage. I took pictures of it. I'll have to show it to you.
So we found a brand of frozen pizza. I want to say it's called Dr. Bonner or Dr. something. They're not huge, and it's really just for two people, and it's super thin crust. And they have one with a marinara and pesto. It's basically neutral. So what we do is we take it out of the freezer, and we'll put like cut up chicken or like if we have had an extra hamburger, we'll cut that up and put the meat on, or like cut up ham or something. Bake it for 14 minutes. Comes out perfect all the time, and that with a salad is a perfect little thing. And the crust is so thin that you're really just having the sauce, the meat, and all that stuff. I'll send you a picture of what it looks like, because I bet you could find it in a store down there. You should try it out.
Well, I did and this has become a cooking show. I did do the pancakes you recommended, the pre-made pancakes.
Mm-hmm.
I blew through those in a day or two. I mean, I couldn't do them again because I ate them too much. Those were really good.
For our listeners, they're pancakes that you can, if you
They're
take
frozen,
two out.
right?
Yeah, they're frozen. You take two out, two or three. 2 is 45 seconds in a microwave. 3 would be a minute. You wrap them in like a paper towel. You zap it for 45 seconds if it's 2. I haven't had they taste like they came right off the short order cook, right?
No, they're really good. They went boom. Then I thought, well, I can't get used to these.
Well, Bob swore off of them for a while, and then he's kind of back now. So,
listen, it's a quick, good breakfast, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Back to the show we normally do, but we hope you enjoyed, cooking with Tim and John. So, Mr. Bennett, without further ado, what caught your eye?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Well, speaking of meat, which I like with my pancakes, by the way, unless you were being under a rock, there's the French pole vaulter, Anthony Ammirati, which has gone viral. Many of you probably have seen. It's been all over social media. It's been over everywhere. Other than, I don't think the mainstream news is running it, only because it's so scandalous. But French pole vaulter, young guy, I believe he's 23 years old. He was doing the pole vault, and as he went over the bar, his very generous endowment had clipped the bar and knocked it down. So he ended up only coming in 12th. So he didn't score. He didn't win a medal or anything. But the picture of him running down the track and then putting the pole in the little hole thing and going up and over, and then him knocking over the pole has been shown millions of times and has gotten attraction or attention all over the world. And you can see it on anything of social media. They even show it in slow motion. They show it hitting. They show it bouncing. Worst problems to happen to you, right, Mr. Nash? Have you seen the viral clip?
Yeah. We were actually watching the event, and then then the minute it happened, the bar went down. Then about half hour later or something, all the stuff started popping up with zoom in, slow mo, the whole bit.
Well, he didn't get any medals, but he did get, or he is eligible for a payday if he wants it. And I quite frankly think he should take it. The headline is French pole vaulter Anthony Ammirati gets a $250,000 job offer thanks to his viral bulge. It said that his bulge had played a role in costing him Olympic gold, but now it's giving him a chance to make some major green. So he was contacted by a group called Cam Soda. CAMSODA, which is an adult entertainment site. And they've offered him $250,000 in exchange for a 60-minute cam show. So he needs to get on the Zoom and give a little show. So U.S. Weekly had spoke with the vice president, Darren Parker, at Cam Soda, and they said the offer to Ammirati, he's 21, I thought he was 23, is that he just has to come on for 60 minutes and show off his goods in exchange for the $250,000. And they said, of course, he's not going to be wearing the confining spandex pants, and so he has to give a
performance.
He hasn't given an answer yet whether he's going to do this or not. And they asked Ammirati about it. He was very candid. He said the viral mishap and knocking the pole down was a big disappointment.
He said that in French too, by the way. So
it's a big disappointment. Other people have typed in or had commented on the viral clip that not the worst thing to in the world to lose a gold medal in the Olympics because you're packing a French baguette. One person noted, Mr. Ammirati has won in life. Another person said lost the pole vote but won the schlong jump. And then somebody suggested they've also offered him and suggested that he start an OnlyFans site. But so there's $250,000. All he's got to do is do this 160-minute camp show. Why not?
Look,
you got
Tim,
him. Smoke him.
Interesting quandary. He could do it, and if he was smart, he would bank or invest the money, and that could be that could be the beginning of a nest egg for him. He could continue his athletics. Of course, it would be something that would be around for quite a while, unless it's a pay site and you have to actually see it. And on the OnlyFans front, I've read a lot of articles about many British and American athletes who actually have OnlyFans sites to help them make money while they train for the Olympics. I don't know what they show on these things. And one guy said he's discreet. You have to guess at things, but yeah.
I'd take the $250 if I was this guy, and then say I want a percentage of everyone that signs up, so you get a royalty out of it. I mean, wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's the gift that keeps on giving, and he'll have that gift for the rest of his life, the young man, right?
I think, but that's,
on the Olympic side, I've been seeing hilarious things. Like you'll see things of some swimmers pop up on social media, and a comment might be, "Are the swimming events over already?" It's almost as if people live for the flesh show.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. So that was what had caught my eye this week. How about you?
Well, what caught my eye is a trend that Gen Z boys are engaging in, and I read the article a couple times. I want to say it's just strange to me, and here's the headline. Basically, it's young men are chewing. It says Gen Z boys are using hard gum to try and chisel their jawlines. So this hooks into this idea of these impossible beauty standards, and most of us usually ascribe that to women and girls, and especially girls who are like under a lot of pressure to look a certain way, and they feel this way because of social media. Guys are apparently susceptible to it as well. And if you do a search for something called facial fitness chewing gum, which in my life I would never do a search for this, on TikTok you'll see dozens of videos of young men from their late teens to early 20s chewing gum that touts an eyebrow-raising benefit, developing a chiseled jawline. These influencers, these guys that are on TikTok doing this, claim that if you chew this gum, and there's a bunch of brands that do it, Jawliner, Jaws, Stronger Gum, and they're marketed as facial fitness gums, and they're like $22 for a pack of this stuff. If you do it 10 minutes a day, you will actually develop a stronger jawline. Now, the article went into this whole thing. They had a doctor comment on this, and I thought they were going to say that this was like the worst thing you could do ever for your teeth. The American Dental Association noted the possibility of inflammation and jaw pain from chewing gum excessively in their newsletter, but they warned that some of the facial fitness gum varieties may contain caffeine and vitamin B5, which can be a laxative in higher doses. But they didn't come out and say that it was bad for your teeth. But one doctor basically said, hey, look, you can do this for a while, and it may do something to the muscle, and it may make a jawline appear, but it's not going to last because the age you're at, you don't have that kind of a jawline. So what a weird trend, though, huh?
Well, there's no way this works, right? I mean, this is like the penis pump. Get an inch overnight. I mean, it's not.
Is this like a version of the shake weight?
The shake weight, the penis pump, all these things, right? You're gonna, you rub the cream on, and all of a sudden you have no wrinkles. The shake. Remember the shake weight? We had the shake weight.
Oh, I brought it up because we were all on the shake weight train, and we got them sent to us.
I think mine got sold in the
yours
yard
had
sale.
to have disappeared in the Glenside.
It didn't make it down here. Yeah.
If it did make it down, I would be furious because other things didn't make it down. We would in the studio. Paul Hagen came in one time.
Yes, that's where they came from. The Paul Hagen brought him in.
Shake weight. So, what a weird thing, though, right? I kept thinking that this article is going to go down the rabbit hole of damage to someone's teeth, the enamel, the whole bit, but really it comes down to this idea that people can exercise their jaws. I also, there was one little side note on an article that was complementary to this or parallel to this, where someone said, if you are possibly in line to have what is that called? The TMJ, where you get that jaw issue going on.
Right.
This would aggravate it. So if you didn't have it before and you might have been a candidate for developing it, this would push you in that direction. But yeah.
Well, I've heard where guys will grow facial hair to try to define lines in their face or something, but the face you have, I mean, the chances of this working to me are just odd. But I've seen more and more people, and there's a couple of people you and I know that have, You mentioned women sometimes falling into this, social
Beauty
standards
trap,
of beauty
yeah.
or beauty trap. I've seen a couple of men we know that have gone way overboard with the plastic surgery on their faces and getting too much Botox and getting the filler and getting the lips done. There's one guy that was so very handsome, and he's made himself look like a freak. A friend of mine in Philly, he just looks like an absolute freak. And you look at his old pictures and it's like, why did you mess your face up? Remember the singer Pete Burns from Dead or Alive?
Yes,
Same sort
I
of
do.
thing. It's that same
Ooh,
sort
boy.
of thing. And but they get the duck lips, they get the brow lift, they get implants in their chests, they get
They do chin implants.
chin implants, chest implants, the filler in the face, the lips. I mean, they look like clowns. And it's too bad, but I guess it's a form of addiction, I suppose.
I wonder about this. I was at the gym the other day, and I saw an older guy, probably my age, in amazing shape, like an incredibly ripped body. But it also appeared that he had. I mean, to have the face that he had to have some kind of work done. And I just kind of thought I wonder what he looked like without it, because he was very handsome. Why can't you age and just accept your looks? I mean, if you're not on TV, right? If you're not in films, I could see the compulsion or the compelling reason to do that, to further your career, to keep you looking youthful. But even then, I mean, let's look at some of the stars that have had work done, and then 10 years later, it's like, it does not hold
Well, you
up.
also have to keep doing it then, because this one particular guy, his lips have been so stretched now that because it all goes away, your body eventually absorbs it, and then you got to get filled up again.
The filler, yeah.
His lips look horrible. They've been so stretched and pulled and discolored. And then it's the same thing with the Botox. There's another friend of mine that gets Botox every few months. And right before he gets it done, he's a wrinkled mess. It's almost worse. And then he's got to get himself all, needled up again. And I just don't get it. But
years and years ago, I did a charity bike ride from New York to, I think it was Saratoga. And there were two couples on the ride. I might have told the story before. The two guys were plastic surgeons, and their wives were with them. And they all rode. They were from Florida. They were really, really nice people, fun to talk to. One day, we're riding along, and I'm with the two husbands, the two plastic surgeons, and we're talking. And one of them says, "Hey, can you guess what's the most common surgery that we do for men?" And I really didn't have an idea, and they both laughed, and they said, "Above and beyond, far and away, the only thing we mostly do for men, eyelid lift." He said male clients are the worst, because if they're smart, they'll have their eyelids done, and we never see them again. He said women are different. They'll come in for multiple things. He said, but for a man, he said to as you get age, the eyelids droop a bit from age. He said it's easy. It's not exactly pain-free, but it doesn't cause, and it ages with you, and it just freshens up your eyes. He said, and everybody looks at eyes. He said it's a really smart thing. And then as we got closer to this hill, we started going up this hill. The guy's like, "See you in Saratoga." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? We don't have hills in Florida. Have fun." But I never forgot that little odd piece of information about eye lift. Would you ever do an eye lift?
I don't think I would do any plastic surgery.
I know.
But who knows? I mean, I think if you have there have been people I've seen with heavy bags under their eyes, or if you have dark circles maybe or something where
they can't do much for that, by the way.
Do much for
I take that back. I did ask my dermatologist one year about dark circles under your eyes. He said we do have something for that, and he talked about it, and he said it's extremely painful, and you have to do it every 8 months or something. I'm like, okay, I'll take a pass.
Yeah, or you just do a little. I mean, more and more men look at J.D. Vance are wearing makeup, so it's.
I guess he does that on the couch with the.
See
mirror,
Matt Gates' face, by the way. He said
Yes.
it looked like Liberace and Wayne Newton had a baby.
That was when he was at the convention when he spoke. He looked like some weird.
He came
Ken
out
doll.
all yeah. So.
All right, so you and I are not going to be on the hard gum. We have our jaws. We're happy with our jaws. But young men, if you're listening, don't bother. It's a waste of money. Buy a shake weight instead. All right. Without further ado, we have a business birthday for you today.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So our business birthday today is a
It's a good one. It's a good one.
How would you pronounce the last name? Is it Geisel? 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 Geisel.
Giselle. Yeah.
So it's whoever was the AKA Dr. Seuss, which is Theodore Geisel. She's born April 14th, 1921. She died at 97 in 2018. Wow. And she was the second wife of Dr. Seuss. So Theodore Seuss Geisel, or I think we're saying it
Giselle.
correctly.
I think it might be Giselle, yeah.
She, her full name is Audrey Grace Florine Stone Geisel. And as I said, she was the second wife to Dr. Seuss, as we know him, the famous children's author, particularly with Cat in the Hat. And they were married from 1968 until his death in 91. And she was the founder of the Dr. Seuss Enterprises. She was president and CEO until her death in 2018 because she said she needed to control the image and all of the properties related to Dr. Seuss. She was a bit of a ball buster. I won't go into her early years, but she even admits, she said, I was not a very good mother. I sometimes regret it. She said, but you can't live with regret. And she said, but she realizes she wasn't too paternal. She met Dr. Seuss and his first wife, Helen Palmer, at a party in La Jolla back in the 60s. And she was introduced to him as Dr. Seuss. And she really had no idea who Dr. Seuss was. And she just looked at him very slyly and said, left nostril or right nostril. And he looked at her kind of quizzically, didn't quite know what she was doing, even though she was being somewhat facetious. The two couples ended up becoming great friends.
That's a great, weird story.
She ends up having an affair with Dr. Seuss. So Audrey has an affair with Dr. Seuss. His Dr. Seuss's wife gets upset and kills herself. So she dies.
Whoa, I did not see that coming. Seriously? Yeah. Wow, okay.
But Audrey didn't really seem to think that was that much big of a deal. They got married quite shortly after. And he had also announced, now he was 18 years her junior, and he announced to his family, Dr. Seuss announced to his family, I'm 64 years old. I am marrying a woman 18 years younger. I've not flipped my lid. This is not a sudden nutty decision. This was inevitable. This is inescapable. And so they got married. No one attended. No friends attended their wedding.
That's weird too, Tim.
Yeah. They move into the old house that he had, and she says that she had two daughters, and she decided right away she wasn't going to have the daughters live with them. She said they wouldn't have been happy living with us, and I wouldn't be happy living with them, so she sent them off to boarding school. She said, I've never really been very maternal. There are too many other things I want to do with my life. My life is my life, and I want it to be my life. Right? You understand.
I'm hearing like Annie, it's a hard knock life. I mean, Wow. Okay.
So they set off traveling the world, all corners of the world. He began, she initially visited his birthplace, which was Springfield, Massachusetts, soon after the wedding. And she initiated a fundraiser for the Dr. Seuss National Memorial Sculpture Garden and ended up made $1 million. And decided that there was certain value in the properties of Dr. Seuss. And in fact, he started losing his sight from glaucoma in 1975. So she said she served as his eyes and driver. She took all credit for his appearances. She created his beard. She created his persona. She said he had a nose that needed a beard.
She didn't hold back, did she?
No. He was diagnosed with a tumor and ended up dying, and that's when she decided to start this Dr. Seuss Enterprises. I laughed because there's one part here where they said that she, to protect the Dr. Seuss name and copyrights, she became president and CEO of Dr. Seuss Enterprises that she created in 1993, 2 years after his death. Every morning, she held court with his aides and staff at La Valencia Hotel in San Diego, arriving in a 1984 Cadillac with a license plate that said Grinch.
So, Tim, wait. So if you happen to watch on video, if you're watching the YouTube portion of our show, he found a great picture of Audrey. And then the inset picture is the Cadillac, right?
Cadillac, yeah. She showed up every morning at the San Diego Hotel.
This picture because there's a guy dressed up as the Grinch, like with his hands out, pointing at the license plate that says Grinch. And I instantly thought when you sent this over, not knowing anything, I thought, I wonder if she's like the Grinch. Is she kind of like, can she be nasty and cheap? And
well, I think she is. I mean, she certainly was pretty tough. They said that she was very concerned about image, as I said, and she was an artist in her early years, and she says she also credited with invigorating her husband's creative output. And in the 25 years they were married, he published 20 books. She said, particularly The Lorax and You're Only Old Once and Oh, the Places You'll Go. Oh. She told him he needed to change his color palette. And so she was responsible for changing the color palette. And for instance, she said they were on a trip to Kenya. His book, the publisher of the books, Random House, wanted them to do something more around conservation. He saw a bunch of elephants while they were in Kenya, and he wrote The Lorax in 45 minutes right there on safari and on that trip. And that's where he saw people also cutting down acacia trees, which he had named Trufula trees. And so she says, she was responsible for the change of color palette. She was responsible for all of the direction of him and his life as they were together. And so then she started this Enterprises, quote unquote. She fought with Spielberg. Spielberg wanted to do a live action film in 1996. He bought the rights to The Cat in the Hat. In 1999, she pulled it back from him, saying he just couldn't get it right.
But there was a live action Cat in the Hat, right? I think.
I think somebody else ended up getting it.
Okay.
She felt Spielberg couldn't do it right, or at the time he didn't do it right. But they go through all these different.
Who was the comedian? Mike Myers did Austin Powers.
Yes.
Why do I think he was in The Cat in the Hat, or was that Jim Carrey? No, Jim Carrey played the Grinch in a live action thing, and I think it was Mike Myers who did The Cat in the Hat.
Well, the Grinch, they said, got through. She allowed the Grinch
live
to
action
get through.
Grinch, right?
Yeah, she allowed that to get through. But they list all these things. There were rides. There was a ride at the Universal Pictures tried to do a Seuss-inspired Universal Island of Adventure in Florida. Said she refused. She was concerned that the park would cheapen the image. And then after many redesigns, they said she finally approved it in 1995, but she retained all creative control. She says, I don't want the cat showing up places he shouldn't be in the park. And, and
wow.
She was supposed to do something with Kellogg and cereals again. She said no. So she said she didn't want to lose control and confuse people and have her cat on a box of wheat checks. So
her cat on a box of wheat checks.
So she was pretty tough. But anyway, Audrey, happy birthday. And I will say they did start a foundation and have given millions of dollars to literacy and to schools for libraries and so forth. So they have used their money for good.
I'm wondering if it was under her guidance. One of our favorite Christmas things is always The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, right?
Yes. I love that.
And that was animated, but that was made in the 60s. So
yes.
He might have still been alive, right?
Yes. No, well, he died in 91, and then she started
so this was all under
she took over in 93, which she decided she was going to maintain control.
And the color palette.
And all of the direction and so forth.
Now, by the way, that one of the books you mentioned that she claims to have inspired, or she did inspire, Oh, the Places You'll Go.
Right.
That is way at the top of the list for graduation gifts and birthday gifts. Oh, I got that book from Tony once for my birthday. And I still have it. I love it because it's all about, all the places you'll go, the people you'll meet, all the stuff you'll do in life. Good. I thought it was a great business birthday. She's never popped up before.
No, she hasn't. And I've just touched on her little eccentricities. Tongue tied. I've just touched on her craziness. But
Tim, if you can't get a word, just do what Trump does. Oh, when he, sometimes he'll say something. Oh.
This was she was the greatest wife. We've never seen a wife like this before. She was the greatest wife in the whole world. Nobody's ever seen such a wife like this.
No one in the whole world has crowds like me. No one in the whole world
I got more
ever.
If you look, same real estate as Martin Luther King Jr. Same crowds. They said he had $1 million, I had 25,000, but they don't want to give me credit. Yeah,
it's practically a comedy that writes itself, but it's a sort of a sad one because there's a reality that people are hooking into that.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we have a shop talk for you today. We're not going to go through everything, but basically a young woman traveled through every state, and that's why I kicked off with, I don't know where that song came from, 50 Nifty United States from 13 original colonies. And you had to, as we named them one by one. Maybe it was a school song. Did you learn that in school?
I didn't, but I kind of liked your Nifty 50s thing.
50
We're going to use that as the
Nifty
headline.
United States from 13 original colonies.
Must have been Schoolhouse Rock, right?
It could have been. Shout 'em, stunna, tell all about 'em. I don't know why my brain remembers this kind of stuff. I have Schoolhouse Rock in my brain. I learned my multiplication tables that way. My mom, to this day, is mortified that I know how to multiply thanks to a cartoon. But anyway, so she traveled to all 50 states, and she sort of ranked them from her least favorite to her most favorite. But it's not that she didn't, it's just the ones that she really liked and she would go back to again and again. It wasn't that she hated it or something like that. So I showed the article to Tim, and Tim said, well, why don't we each pick maybe 2 or 3 of our favorite states we would go back to again and again, and 3 that we don't have to visit again for a variety of reasons. Is that what you did too, Mr. B?
I did that, but I also I had polled a couple of our friends as well and said, what are your favorite 5 states and 5 states that aren't so favorite? And of course, it's very subjective. And they said, well, It depends. They said, is it a state that brings you joy, or or why don't you say, is there a state you would never live in?
Mm.
And so what I did though is I went through and I looked at the map of the U.S. and I've been to every state other than Alaska.
You've traveled a lot, yeah.
And but I haven't spent time. Some of them was just I'd gone through. Like you and I drove through Nebraska. We didn't really spend time there.
No.
But I thought if I had to pick my favorite places, or if somebody said to you, John, I'm going to give you $1 million. Or I'm going to give you as much money as you want, and you can have a place anywhere in the U.S. Where would you pick? Would there be a place you would pick? Or would there be a place if I said to John, John, I'm going to give you $1 million home in Kansas.
Would you live in it?
Would you move there and
Yeah.
live there? And so I kind of did that too. But anyway, I asked a few of our friends to come back with a list, and it was interesting. There were similarities on all of our. There was a lot of where people would not live. Florida was a big one.
Okay, so funny you say that. I put Florida on my list of states that I said least favorite or meh, but she loved, the author of this piece loved the Florida Keys. She liked Miami. She liked a couple of Biscayne. And I've been to Florida several times. I mean, and it is beautiful. I just couldn't live there. If you've been there in July and you walk out of an air-conditioned building, it's like walking into a brick wall of humidity. And then, unfortunately, politics plays a role, and their current governor seems to be very unwelcoming to the LGBTQ community, of which we are part. So that was one of the top of my list. What else did you get?
So I'll just tell you. So my favorites I picked when I looked at the list to say
These are your states you would like live in.
These are the ones. So I picked Maine, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Colorado, California, Oregon, and Washington. And I had Minnesota, but really just the Twin Cities, so that doesn't count. But
Tim,
I thought
we don't overlap. This is really weird.
But I thought to myself, if there were places that I always wanted to, and I've said this before, when I was younger, I wish I had lived in California.
Mm-hmm. You might never
particularly
left.
Northern California, and I loved Oregon. I actually liked Oregon more than Washington, but those were the ones that I picked as my favorites. What were your favorites?
Well, it's weird. So I happen to love New York State. And that's because I can live in 2 parts of it. We live here in the city, and we also have a house in upstate. And upstate is where you really get the sense of an agrarian state with hills and it's bike riding up there is fantastic. I also picked North Carolina. As a kid, we used to vacation at the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and in later years, I've been to other parts of the state, and I think it's a beautiful state. Arizona I picked because I've traveled there a couple times, and I just think that it's such an unusual, the desert is so different, right? And I also chose Utah because of some of the most stunning parks in the world. California would have been on my list. I liked Oregon more than Washington State, but that's where I kind of really thought about it. Like, if I had to live somewhere else for the rest of my life, it would be interesting for these places.
So you didn't pick Palm Springs?
No.
For California. No. So you picked Arizona more.
I do love Southern California.
Right.
I've never lied about that. If I had a choice, I would be Southern California versus Northern California. But we've been there a lot. Like over the course of our lifetime, I've traveled to LA quite a bit, and I could see settling down there, but we know it already. So these other ones are more of a exploratory thing.
So in states that I didn't like, or I wouldn't move to or live in, I put down Georgia, Louisiana, Kentucky, Indiana, Texas, Iowa, North Dakota, Mississippi, and Illinois, and Florida. I can go on and on. But Illinois. I lived in Chicago. I lived in Chicago for a few years, and outside of Chicago, the suburbs of Illinois and the rest of Illinois for me was just a wasteland and difficult, as is Indiana. And so I just had no love for that. But yeah, and in Texas, I just never. I know a lot of people love Texas. We have a lot of listeners in Texas. I just never fell in love with Texas as others have.
So my list is, again, we overlap on Texas. We overlap on Alabama. Did you also say Louisiana?
Yeah.
So, and again, I just want to make clear that this is nothing about the state. This is just sort of a personal preference. I loved visiting New Orleans the couple times I've been there, New Orleans, but not enough to actually live in Louisiana and be subject to the kind of weather patterns that are becoming increasingly more frequent. You might be surprised when I tell you that I put Vermont up on the top of of a state that I was okay, it's fine.
Yeah,
because I think Maine's actually
like upstate
prettier.
New York.
It's an extension of Massachusetts or upstate New York, and that's why I think like Maine is significantly different than Vermont. But and that was about it. I didn't put Georgia on it because I've never really been to Georgia, and I'm dying to go to Savannah. South Carolina, I've only driven through, and again, you and I, the lens of where you might want to settle as an LGBTQ person in America today might be distorted by the legislatures and the impression that we have that states might not be welcoming. So that was my little list there.
And I really dug into if I had been forced to pick a area of the country, and maybe it's just because it's where we grew up and I had to settle and live there, I would say the Berkshires of Connecticut, Western Massachusetts, over your way, and Hudson Valley. To me, I think of all the places I've been in, and there are beautiful places all over the country and beautiful places, obviously, in every state. But there's just something that I love about the Litchfield County in Connecticut, Western Mass, and that area of upstate New York that I just think is beautiful. And the Connecticut part in particularly, in Sharon and Kent and Litchfield, that whole
Lake
area.
Lake Warmorog up towards the north, right?
Yeah, I just find it...
I agree with you.
Something about it I just like. It has all the seasons. It's charming. It's close to Manhattan. It's close to Boston. It's close to the mountains. It's close to the beach.
New England, yeah.
Yeah, so I would have... I guess if I had to, forced to pick someplace, that's where I would pick. Interestingly, I did not pick Delaware.
Even though you're...
It's where I'm living now. I do like Delaware, although I find it... the state legislature needs to get a grip on growth, and it's going to ruin the state if they don't figure something out, because the infrastructure cannot handle the influx of people, and there's a lot of people moving here. So we'll see what happens.
On our road trip, Tim and I did a all-track. VW used to manufacture a all-wheel drive wagon called the All-Track. I think they have suspended it in favor of larger vehicles, which suit the American purchaser better. But we started out in Seattle and did a road trip all the way through Denver and Wyoming, where we went to Devil's Tower, which was amazing. If you remember, Devil's Tower was featured in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's the center of an old volcano. I fell in love with how you could sit in the back of that car and you'd be driving along and all you saw was a straight road in front of you and a blue sky and now and then like a mesa or, you could fall in love with some of these wide open spaces, no doubt. Do I see myself ever living there? No, and that's why I like the diversity of New England. We have neighbors near us named Carol and John. We see them for dinner now and then upstate, and they used to live in the city as well. And one day I just kind of casually mentioned, I had seen an article about the U.S. Geological Survey had released what they would think would be the potable water sources in the next 50 years. Like where is it easy to get drinking water? And the minute I said that, John's like, well, my friend, you live in the sweet spot of the United States. It turns out that the New England and Northeast is going to always, probably will never have a water problem like, let's say, the West would have.
Right.
And then that got us talking about the whole thing, and it's exactly what Tim was saying. And John, he was going about, I can drive here, I can go here, I can see fields, I can see mountains, I can get snow, I could get this. So I don't know. I guess maybe a lot of this is driven by where we grew up, right?
Right. And as somebody said, this woman here in the article picked Colorado, and I told that to a friend of ours, and they said, Colorado is wonderful if you like the mountains, but if you're a person that wants to be by water or by a beach, you would probably pick a coastal community. So It's obviously all very subjective, as you mentioned. We drove through Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. It was beautiful. I mean, absolutely gorgeous.
Gorgeous. And
South Dakota was like a Roadrunner cartoon, right? I mean, it was...
Totally. And it really did. I mean, and when we did our VW Beetle trip, we went through West Virginia, was Ohio, Kentucky, Missouri. I mean, St. Louis was an amazingly beautiful city. I'd never been there before. We did the Arch, and poor Tim does not like confined spaces or heat.
Or heights.
And the Arch had all of it. You had to ride up in this little elevator car that was capsule. Like a pod. You get to the top, and you're trapped in the top of this metal thing, and they had portable air conditioning. It was like 105 that day or something, remember?
Yeah, it was horrible, horrible heat.
But, you never know that from the pictures we took. We got some great photos from that trip.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll if you want to check out the article, we'll post it to our Facebook page, and you can take a look and see if, in fact, you agree with the writer, this Emily, whether you agree with her top 50. She said her least favorite was Oklahoma, but again, she didn't want to disparage it. She just said she didn't spend enough time there to make it.
Yeah. And I thought that was a good thing she did that. It was basically just her impressions of the states she was there and why
I will say, when you and I did our cross-country trip, Oklahoma was a surprise to me. I went in there
especially
thinking,
Oklahoma City. Beautiful.
Right. We went in there thinking it was going to be and we actually had a
great
nice
time.
Visit there. Yeah. So, hey, thank you all for joining us here on the Focus Group. Be sure to catch our show every Wednesday. You can learn all about us at focusgroupradio.com. We also have our Saturday feed just with audio that's available through our Facebook and YouTube feeds, which are all titled Focus Group Radio. Thanks to our friends at Deep Discount, also a partner of ours here. And you can find them in the margin when you go to our website and click on them and start shopping away. As John mentioned, get ready for Criterion Month when we do John's Pick That Flick, which allows you the opportunity to win some great movies. We hope you all have a good week. And remember, don't text and drive or arrive alive, and we'll see you next time on the Focus Group.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.